Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say this before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Corey Buchan, happy hump day out there, ladies and gentlemen, on this beautiful Wednesday, the 24th of April out here. Diesel fuel, national average, down $3.99 a gallon. So we're finally below $4 a gallon out there. That's pretty cool, right? That's enticing. I get all of that information from the EIA, you guys, EIA.gov. Also, International Road Check is going to be live here coming up on May 14th through the 16th. So be prepared for that. That's always one of those situations. That's always one of those situations where it can get dicey out there from a capacity standpoint. And, people shut down because they just don't want to deal with the DOT during that week at all. So International Road Check is May 14th through the 16th. So pay attention to that. Keep that on your calendars. Talk to your shippers about that as well and let them know that you are going to be available and everything else. And especially if you're running during that week as a trucking company, you're gonna probably make some pretty good money that week. At least that's what historically has happened out there. But this year is shaping up to be an interesting one, to say the least. Let's see here. What else? What are some other things that we broke down? Oh yeah, my conversation with Nick Isabella, that's up there. That's live on the podcast, as well as my conversation with Forrest Williams with Legacy Insurance. You guys, those are all out there over on iTunes and Spotify. So you make sure you get caught up on all those past episodes, you guys. We put them up there almost immediately after the show here. But speaking of the show, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback on the new marketing angle that we're taking with that. So I appreciate everything. I hired a marketing guy here who is working with me to improve the social media game on some of that stuff, episode announcements, helping me send out some audio clips and everything else, because I've just reached a point where I can't do it all myself anymore. And I'm trying to take stuff off my plate. And what's crazy about being, being an entrepreneur is you think that you're taking stuff off your plate, but then it just gets instantly filled with other stuff, which, again, I need to focus more on growing the business out and, bringing on more advertisers and everything, and really building this out and continuing to build this out. So check that out. And then also, you guys, check it. We are releasing a weekly newsletter as well. I'm not going to spam all of the tens of thousands of people that are in my contacts and everything. I'm not going to just automatically sign you up for that stuff. So if you guys want to get in on the Freight Coach newsletter, which drops every single Friday, just go to thefreightcoach.com and register for it on my website, you guys. And we're doing it. We're figuring it all out, you guys. That's just the way that I learn is I will start and figure it out as I go. Let's see here. And yeah, I think that's it for kind of getting caught up on things. Obviously, there was some pretty big news that dropped yesterday. And if you guys were on social media, you realized how many non-compete experts there are in your network of people. I had no idea how many people were complete experts in non-compete agreements and everything. It's kind of wild when it shifted from the Port of Baltimore. Everybody was an expert there. Now everybody's an expert on non-compete agreements and everything else. So it's interesting how that progression of things has happened. That being said, we're going to talk about that here today. And Chad Olison got me yesterday. I don't know if you guys are connected with Chad, but you should be if you're not. And he posted a picture of Jimmy John's. And I thought, I read the head, like the top tagline of this post, and I thought Jimmy John's was closing, and I about cried in that because you just can't beat the number 14 with their salt and vinegar chips. Get me some. If you want a key to my heart, that is exactly how you do it with a good old Jimmy John Sando. But non-competes, I think that, again, I'm not going to like jump to anything because just based on this headline out here from NBCnews.com is that the Biden administration bans non-compete agreements, setting up legal showdown with business groups. I personally, Chris Jolly, despise fucking non-competes. I think they're an absolute joke for the overwhelming majority of the workforce that is out there. I do see the value in non-competes when you have access to senior level and proprietary information about, if you're on a leadership team, like, if you're working with me one day and you're in the mergers and acquisitions team and, kind of our playbook on where we're going to go with things. Yeah, there's going to be a non-compete and stuff out there because I don't want trade secrets getting out there. But when we're talking about frontline workers who are fresh out of college and everything else, I think that there's a large group of people who should not sign non-competes. But I think that if you're in there into just like in the decision-making role and like the vision and the direction of the company and like high level strategy, there should be a non-compete that's in there from that perspective. But for the majority of people out there, like, I know that, I'll just use the Jimmy John's example. A sandwich person at Jimmy John's should be free to go work at fucking Subway if they want. But let's get into this article here a little bit. The Biden administration has issued a nationwide ban on the ability of employers to make their workers sign non-competes, a move regulators said would help boost employee pay, but which is set to be challenged in court. Obviously, everything's going to be challenged in court. In a ruling Tuesday afternoon, the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, said non-compete clauses would henceforth be illegal. The measure was necessary, it said, for protecting the fundamental freedom of workers to change jobs, increasing innovation, and fostering new business formations. Non-compete clauses keep wages low, suppress new ideas, and rob the American economy of dynamism. I don't think non-competes keep wages down. I'm just going to disagree with that statement out there, but I digress. The FTC's final rule to ban non-competes will ensure Americans have the freedom to pursue a new job and start a new business or bring a new idea to the market. The FTC estimates nearly 1 in 5 Americans are subject to non-competes. They have grown increasingly common in lower wage or hourly work industries like fast food, restaurants, and security firms, where some employees have sought to limit the ability of workers to effectively raise their pay by looking for work at competing establishments. When it comes down to frontline fast food workers and restaurants, and like, of course, like I had mentioned, there should not be you should not be have a non-compete for somebody at McDonald's if they want to go work at In-N-Out. In addition to banning all new non-competes, the FTC rule applies to existing non-compete agreements. Employers will now have to provide notice to workers to bound to a current non-compete that will not be forced against them. The rule was hailed by labor groups and left-leaning policy experts. Non-competes are about reducing competition, full stop. It's in their name. Heidi Shirels, the president of the progressive nonprofit Economic Policy Institute. Non-competes are bad for workers, bad for consumers, and bad for the broader economy. This rule is an important step in creating an economy that is not only strong, but also for working people. We're going to just skip ahead here, but business groups are already hitting at the ban, saying non-competes are essential for protecting trade secrets and proprietary information. The group also says non-competes ultimately help workers by endangering a more collaborative firm environment and limiting so-called free riders or employees who seek to capitalize on specific company methods and taking that knowledge elsewhere. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce said it plans to sue the FTC. In a statement, it said the decision sets a dangerous precedent for government micromanagement of business and can harm employers, workers, and our economy. I look at it like this. So I'm just from this perspective about what they said about non-competes are essential to protecting trade secrets and proprietary information. I look at it as from this perspective of if you are a frontline, like I'll use brokerage for an example. If you're a fucking an entry-level sales rep who is smiling and dialing, and you're out there developing. Why are you having a non-compete, right? Like there's no reason for that. But again, if you're a vice president of sales and you have access to all of your company's rates, what you quote customers, what you pay carriers, and everything else, I could see why that would be a valid position to have a non-compete agreement in it. But I think from the frontline workers perspective, there should never be a non-compete agreement that is out there. And, again, I'm just speaking more from reading this article for the first time here than anything. I think that there's got to be something in there where, there's a certain level of information that if you are not privy to, you should be fine. But then, frankly, at the end of the day, I look at it like this. If I have created an environment that somebody doesn't want to work in, I believe in my product that much that I don't think people would leave. But if they do leave, I don't want to stop anybody from going and pursuing something great. But I feel like there is a certain level of information that you might have access to that you don't want getting out there. So there's got to be a certain level, from my perspective, where a non-compete agreement should be in place. But it's more of a strategy positions that are out there because, and then again, I just think that because the majority of the people that are affected by these, the front level sales reps who are making 100 cold calls a day, or the front level carrier sales reps who are just booking the fucking $50 recycled plastic loads time and time again. Like, why are you stopping them from going out and getting more money out there? They're not going to throw off the trajectory of your business. And frankly, if you think that one individual can steal your customers as a leader, you are fundamentally failing your customers and your organization as a whole, because that means that nobody knows who you are as the leader of that organization. And that is one thing that I am implementing and going to run with for a very, very long time in my business is getting in front of people. Everybody will know who I am that works with us. It might not be on an every month or an every 6-month cadence, but I will be personally in contact with the overwhelming majority of our customers for the foreseeable future. And then obviously, as I build systems and teams, but somebody from my organization outside of the sales rep will be in contact with our customers at all time, because I want to build customer loyalty. I don't want it to be viewing me as a transaction. And I feel like if I do that and I take care of my employees, I will take care of my customers. And then it is just going to be a nice synergistic. I don't even know if that's a fucking word, but I'm going to use it. I went to public school. It's going to create synergy that's out there where, a lot of companies aren't going to be, they're not going to, I'm hoping that they're not going to want to leave working with me out there. But at the end of the day, if somebody wants to go find a better life for themselves, I want them to find that. Luke Wright, good morning. Sydney Thiessen, good morning to you. Paul McClellan says, as a former current victim of a non-compete, I am in favor of this decision. Paul, I am as well. I'm not going to get into my details, but you can just Google my name and some stuff will come up on that. I look at it like this. Here's another thing. People need to be aware of what you're signing. I think that, again, I'm not saying that there's not predatory things, but, or like there's companies out there that don't let you leave the building and everything else, and you got to sign those documents. I think if you're going to have a non-compete that is out there, you need to give your people a time to you need to give people a time to go and review that document and everything else, and then come back knowing that they're going to sign it. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes and where this all falls into, because I think that it's just there's a lot more that is yet to unfold with a lot of this, and it is yet to be seen. But again, stay on top of it, you guys. Don't just rely on social media for all of your information. And I know the irony of me saying that, considering this show is on social media itself. But if you just scrolled through LinkedIn yesterday and you saw everybody's post, you would think that non-competes don't exist anymore. And that's not necessarily the case. There is a lot of lawsuits that are going to be filed. This is not an instant thing. And if you're an attorney, not a commentator, if you're an attorney who has a different opinion on this and who can come on and talk to my audience about it, I would love for you to come on and explain what is actually the current situation going on out there. Uma says, I think non-compete with an employee who has been part of the decision-making process of the company is important. You don't want trade secrets to leak out. Yeah, Uma, I said that a little bit ago, and I agree with that. I think that there's a certain level that you need to have a non-compete agreement in there, but that's more of proprietary information about, like I used an M&A example. If I had somebody on my M&A team, and they, wanted to leave and they had access to all the companies that we were in the process of acquiring or something like that, or somebody who had literally all the access to all of our customers, our contacts, our rates that we quote our customers and our rates that we pay our carriers, that is information that I would not want getting out there as well. So I think that there's certain levels, but your typical frontline worker, who are the majority of the people that are affected by this, are shouldn't be bound to this. Or I look at it like this: if you're going to have somebody under a non-compete, there's got to be a severance package that comes along with that if they're not going to be there. I think that there's certain things that are going to fall out from this, and it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, that article was from NBCnews.com. All right. Next article we are going to break down here today on this beautiful Wednesday is going to be, let me see here. Where did that article go? Boom, here we go. This one is from MSN.com. Key shipping company shutters operations and bankruptcy is uncertain. The U.S. logistics industry has been battling with a financial distress this year, with companies filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy to liquidate, Chapter 11 to reorganize, and downsizing operations or just shuttering operations. In some cases, lawsuits can force companies to file bankruptcy to impose an automatic stay against any legal actions while the bankruptcy commences. JJ and Sons Logistics of Clint, Texas, on January 22nd, filed Chapter 7 liquidation to avoid litigation and possible expensive judgments. The company filed bankruptcy 4 days before the scheduled start of a trial for a wrongful death lawsuit filed by a family of a former company truck driver who had died from drowning. Sometimes a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing gives a company breathing room to reorganize and get back on its feet. Nationwide Cargo, a general freight trucking company that also hauls fresh produce and meat, filed for Chapter 11 on March 13th in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court of Northern District of Illinois. And then it goes on that a shipping company shuts down its subsidiaries. And then there's Universal Logistics Holdings, which has decided to permanently close two of its subsidiaries, laying off almost 700 employees without filing for bankruptcy. The Warren, Michigan company subsidiary Universal Dedicated of Detroit will lay off 230 drivers, while Logistics Insight Corp will shutter and lay off 450 workers. And then it gave no reason for shutting down. And then finally, California Intermodal Associates, a family-owned trucking company, has shut down operations but has not decided to file bankruptcy. CEO Gabriel Chowell, told the street that he has hired lawyers to advise him on his next step. And then the company owes as much as $1.8 million to a lender. And then it goes on to talk about California law forces trucking company to shutter. It's kind of funny how a lot of these end up in the state of California and all their amazing laws that they place out there. The Commerce, California-based shipping company, provides intermodal services out there as well as warehousing facilities. The company, founded 25 years ago, employed 30 drivers, but it was forced from using independent contractors out there. California Assembly Bill 5, aka AB 5, just putting that out there, which became law on January 1st, 2020, required certain businesses to classify workers as employees instead of independent contractors. And Chowell said that the company began complying with the law in the summer, but as soon as the company began complying with the law, its expenses began rising. Its rates increased to 25 to 30%, and customers stopped doing business with them. And then it also says that other trucking company owners are afraid because they didn't do what we did to stay compliant. And again, those are just other little fallouts out there from the AB5 disaster, which, again, I do not think that it's a real thing. I've already talked about it enough. I don't want to blow another blood vessel about how much bullshit that law is. But, I'm trying to get some people from the state of California to come on the show and talk about that. Some organizations that are actively working to fight that. And, again, to me, California is the blue beacon for what could fall out and go to other states out there. So I think it's just very, very dangerous overall. But, again, that's just a little brief overview from MSN.com about, what companies are kind of going through out there in the industry as a whole. Paul McClellan says those aggressive non-competes that limit a person's ability to work in the same industry they're in is not viable. Excuse me. Yeah, no, again, Paul, I get it. And I think that, like I said, there's a certain level that non-competes are, I think, reasonable for. And there's a certain level that they are not reasonable for. But yeah, let me see here. Uma Taylor says these Californian trucking companies, I'm telling you, it's their power efficiency programs that are saving them. Uma. Oh, that's funny. And then I found this article, our bonus article here. Well, our bonus one was talking about non-competes, and it's good to keep that on your radar and kind of see where things are going with the whole non-compete agreement. I don't think it's out of the clear anywhere soon yet, but there's another article that I saw. I had missed this because I was at a conference during this time, but it was from ttnews.com, and it was when will the freight market conditions improve? And it goes on to say, when will the market turn? And then Kendra Phillips, who's the vice president of Rider Systems, says right now there's still excess capacity that's out there. Nonetheless, she expects 2024 to be a steady year. And then we need to be making the right investments in tech. We need to be implementing that tech, and we need to be setting ourselves up to drive success that our shippers when freight rates do go up. Right now, it's our year to take a step back, take a deep breath, and position ourselves appropriately. Glancing in the rearview mirror, the final quarter of 2023 stood out as the toughest period out there. During that quarter, the industry experienced a 4.7% decline in shipments, 4.3% decrease in invoice amount per shipment, and an 8.8% drop in total revenue. Average gross margins percentage during the fourth quarter stood at 15.6%, up slightly on a quarter-to-quarter basis, but still well below year-ago levels. Let's see here. What else? Sorry, my computer is jumping around. Gosh dang it. Where did this article go? Okay, sorry about that. Here we go. And then the headwinds were in every, let's see, the average, it's like 15.6% gross margin out there average. Like that's standard, right? So I think that margins are like, that's a healthy margin for a freight brokerage out there that it's moving standard legal drive-in reefer and flatbed shipments and stuff like that. Like that's a very standard amount, 15.6%. Shit, man. I think when yeah. Okay. And then it goes on to say the headwinds were there in every single category from loads to invoice per load for small and medium and large brokers, said Ann Renke, who is with the CEO of TIA. And the only thing that's somewhat of a bright spot is our gross margins were a little bit stabilized out there, which I would say that those are very stabilized because those are very standard. And then as of January 26th, a total of 28,000 freight brokers were registered with the FMCSA, down from 31,000 in 2022. The load board operator DAT also reported difficult market conditions. Contract rates, which had been buoying brokers' margins, came down, and the freight was rebid, said Ken Adamo. They weren't making as much money on the spot market. They weren't making as much money on the contract market. It was just really crunched that their bottom line. And a recent DAT study found that freight brokers' average gross margin, the percentage of revenue after paying the carrier, was just under 13.5%. Brokers were the weakest in drive-in at 13%, and then flatbeds commanded the highest at 15%, followed by reefers at 13.8%. And then it goes on to say Adamo expressed some measured optimism about the year ahead, predicting that the transportation providers will begin to feel some tailwinds in the second quarter. And then it goes on to say, I think we will see a market largely pointed towards recovery by mid to late Q2, and I think by a pretty good quarter in Q3. And then he says, I think consolidation is still certainly on the menu. And then he also says, I think you're going to continue to see diversification of service offerings. You're going to see smaller and smaller brokers offering managed transportation and other value added, diversifying into less than truckload and intermodal that is out there. Again, Ken puts out a lot of great content. You guys follow Ken if you're not following Ken on social media. He puts out a lot of great posts and a lot of matter of fact information. I think that, again, what can you do with all of this though? Again, I look at it from a very, very simple perspective. It's always going to be challenging, and you have to be willing to do what others aren't willing to do. Most people don't want to even send a personalized email. Most people don't even want to, and then let alone pick up a phone and call somebody, right? Like, I have been doing more and more cold calling this year, from mainly over the last 45 days. I will say this: I was mainly email heavy, but I have been very much transitioning more into cold calling, and I am feeling way more traction being built through cold calling than I ever have in years past. And then again, like I talk about all the time, get out and fucking shake some hands, you guys. Get out and meet people. You're not going in there. You're not going to get a sale on the very first site visit or cold call or whatever that looks like. But guess what? They need to know who you are, because it is saturated with subpar providers out there. All right. And you can look at the earnings reports and you can say, and again, I'm not internally, but like when I see some of the largest companies out there not grow over these last couple of years, that means that nobody changed operating the way that they were. Because I feel like if you did anything different from anybody else, there would be a couple of companies that are clear cut, hands down above everybody else. And everybody kind of transitioned back down into where they were. And again, my honest assessment is there are still opportunities everywhere. Okay. No, you are not going to close them right away, but there are opportunities everywhere, and you can get in the door with people if you are not afraid to do what others aren't willing to do. Everybody wants to automate their way out and remove the personal experience, and I'm not going to do that. I am all about the personal experience. I want my customers to know how much I fucking care about their business, and I will only get that if I'm sitting across the table from them at their office or I'm talking to them over the phone. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. I'll save any more additional rants for a later date. But that article was on ttnews.com, you guys. But I got a guest coming on tomorrow, and then Friday's Q&A day, you guys. We haven't done that in a couple of weeks, but Friday is Q&A day. So if you have any sales or operations related questions that you want for the transportation industry, DM them over to me or drop them in the chat on Friday, and I'll answer them live on the show. And at the end of the day, you guys, if you guys got value in what you hear, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. Subscribe to my newsletter. All right, go to thefreightcoach.com. Takes 2 seconds. Enter your information. New newsletters are dropped every single Friday. We'll be back tomorrow. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.